Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everyone to Eye on ESI, our monthly program with Jared Coseglia and True Staffing Partners, where we talk about everything job related, recruiting, headhunting, placement, all those good things. As you can see, I'm kind of making it up today because our usual host, Maribel Rivera, has taken a day off. Well-deserved break for her. So you got me and Jared today, and we're going to talk about the current trends and movements and things going on in job placement, career advancement, so on and so forth. So there, with that awkward introduction, Jared, welcome aboard.
Hey, Mike, good to be with you as always. And yes, thank you everyone for joining us here today. And a lot of the data we're going to discuss today, you can find here in full in our 2024 eDiscovery Jobs Report. Please download a copy for yourself for free. Use it to evangelize for headcount, for buy-in, for your own career and salaries. This is the best benchmarking possible about what people are making and the trends that are happening in the industry. And we're going to share some of them with you today. If you're new to us, and if you're old to us, we've got some new trends for the month that has just passed in May to present to everybody. May was a very milestone-driven month, Mike. The milestones are a little unusual, and the milestones I think you'll find are often contradictory. So we're going to unpack what those contradictions are and why those contradictions have sort of brought us to a unique place in the year in terms of the trajectory of the eDiscovery job market. So May 2024, last month, updates, had the highest amount of offers declined of any month this year. And that's for two reasons. The biggest reason is people are getting multiple offers at the point of hire. So people aren't just getting one offer the way they were back in 2023 and taking it. Candidates are getting one, two, sometimes three offers before they make a decision. And if you pick one and you got offered three, two people are getting declines. So we saw a lot more people getting declines, a lot more demand for the similar types of candidates, but we're also starting to see some people decline jobs and just stay put, which is also unusual. And some of them not even getting counteroffers, although some of them are, and taking them, which is also unusual and not something we've seen trending for almost 18 months.
So just to be clear, Jared, three offers from three different places,
Correct.
and they're declining them.
Well, they're taking one. They're taking one of them. Most of them are taking one.
I got you. Okay.
But then there are two others that are disappointed. And so all of a sudden, what that's saying is we're fighting in the market over the same candidates. The amount of active job seekers out there that are available have diminished, but the requirements have stayed the same. So that one person fits the mold for multiple jobs and is now getting one yes and giving away two no's. And as a result, we're seeing more people decline jobs because there's a diminishing amount of job seekers. Why am I saying this? A, because if you're considering a job move and are being passive about it, now's a good time to activate your job move, particularly if you're in the middle of the market, eDiscovery project managers, analysts, and eDiscovery attorneys who are not, partners or managing large teams. Those are in high demand right now, high demand. But what's also interesting, Mike, is this next point.
Yes.
In the month of May, we also saw the highest amount of inbound resumes to our job postings for the entire year. So people are looking, right? People are out there considering job opportunities more so than ever this year. But man, are they being really picky. And man, is the market sort of focused on this one segment of price and experience in the market that is the highest demand for a lot of hiring managers currently. Yeah.
Hey, really quick question. These are US-based trends, right? Not worldwide?
No, these are I wouldn't call it worldwide. I mean, I'm not going to, attest to doing business in Africa and eDiscovery a lot. There could be trends there, but this definitely covers EMEA, the UK, and all of the United States, as well as some parts of South America and APAC. We definitely do work in Hong Kong, Australia, Singapore, a little bit in Tokyo. And so all of that is coming from these, but we're also tracking a lot of this stuff. Inbound resumes, those can come from anywhere,
Sure.
right? We have people applying from all over the world for us, certainly.
Okay, good. That was a question in the chat.
Yeah, good question. So in May of 2024, we also had the lowest amount of first round interviews. So this
what does that
also,
mean?
so it signals two things. One, employers are taking more time with their search. They're actually slowing down, which is dangerous, right? The searches are slowing down. The amount of available talent for searches that are very similar is diminished. And as a result, there's less people to pick and choose from. There's less people applying because they feel like they might price out or they're not quite qualified in terms of caliber. But again, the market is so focused on this, and you'll see it in this slide later today, on this, let's call it 85 to 130, $125,000 a year salary range for most e-discovery professionals, maybe a little bit higher for the ESI attorneys, but not much higher. That's why you're seeing such a low amount of interviews. There's a diminishing supply of talent in that segment of the market. There's an increasing demand. And as a result, the good people that are available are going very quickly and having multiple offers at the point of hire. We're not seeing a lot of compromise right now in the marketplace. I hate to liken it to where we are sort of politically, but it is a very polarized job market in e-discovery right now. Job seekers are holding very firm to what they're looking for and what they're willing to compromise on, which is very little, namely going and commuting into an office if they're not doing it already, compensation. Those two things are driving a lot of people to just say no to opportunities right now. On the flip side, employers are holding the line with demanding, a lot of them, particularly law firms, and we'll see how that's impacting all sorts of metrics in the marketplace, law firm versus vendor in a second. That is also driving this sort of stasis, right? Got to be in the office 3 days a week, got to fit within this salary range. We're not going above this number. The economy is doing these things. Interest rates are still being held firm. We don't see them coming down maybe at all this year. That's putting pressure on us to hold the line in terms of what we're willing to offer. But the candidates are holding the line too. And so we're seeing a lot of, a little bit of a game of chicken right now with hiring managers and passive job seekers. And the market is running out of active job seekers to go easily pluck with the salary ranges and in-office requirements that they're demanding.
Okay.
Motivations. The motivations for both active and passive job seekers are fueled by these four things: feeling understaffed, feeling overworked, feeling underpaid or valued, or simply being bored. This is what's driving people to look for other opportunities, these four things, which is interesting, right? Because most of them are negative. There are times, I would say maybe 2 years ago, where we saw people looking for things that were more opportunistic. They were running towards things in the marketplace as opposed to running from them. But there is certainly a sense from the market of dissatisfaction in their current role in employment that is driving them to look for greener pastures elsewhere. And that is a shift in the mentality of the candidate job seeking marketplace over the last, let's call it 6 to 12 months. Really, we started seeing that come when burnout became the primary motivator for people towards the end of the year last year, and really fueled the first and second quarter motivations for job seekers, that sense of burnout.
Now, let me ask you this, Jared. Is it your sense that management, I could understand this from the job seeker, the working professional perspective. Do the hiring managers know this? Are they aware?
I think they are aware. I think they are feeling a lot of pressure in a lot of different directions in their business, particularly on the vendor side, for increased profitability. There are a lot of organizations whose private equity or venture capital are coming up on cycles where they want to have a change of control. And it has been difficult to maximize the exit strategy over the last 18, 20 months. I think a lot of people are holding out that there are going to be greener pastures in the fourth quarter of this year, maybe third if we're lucky, but definitely going into 2025. And yet we're in an election year here in the United States. And in a lot of Europe, as some of you saw, the results were quite unpredictable in France and other places earlier this week. The United States has seemed very unpredictable right now. That unpredictability causes C-suite executives and people holding the purse strings to be much more conservative about how they spend, where they spend, why they spend. They're looking at necessity. People are also hoarding cash right now, right?
Yeah, you could see that in the market. Like the market is kind of in a holding pattern.
Markets in a holding pattern had a meteoric rise over the first 5 months of this year, particularly driven by AI. And a lot of people are saying now's not the time to go put my cash into the market. The time to put cash into the market was in 2022 and 2023 when things bottomed out. So people are hoarding cash right now. And when you hoard cash, you don't spend it on things like technology, talent, and marketing, sales, and all the rest of it. So when you don't spend money on those things, your salespeople get upset because they don't have the budget to go wine and dine or go to conferences or whatever the case may be, or they're not getting the inside support resources that maybe they were accustomed to during peak years of business sales and e-discovery in 21 and 22. But other people feel like they've hit a concrete ceiling in terms of vertical growth at their organizations, but they're not willing to just walk away from it and give away some of the benefits like being fully remote from home, being able to work in third tier cities where the cost of living is significantly lower, and they're not looking to relocate back to these big cities. All of these things play big dynamics into how people are willing or not willing to explore opportunities.
And I want to ask you one other question, and there's a question in the chat that I want to get to in a second, but
Sure.
when it comes to being underpaid, undervalued, is that a perception more than a reality? Because like we've been doing this for months and months.
Value is always a perception, right? No
No,
matter how you talk about it.
absolutely. To a certain extent, it's completely subjective to the individual. But based on what we've been seeing and reporting for months and months now, e-discovery salaries have increased pretty substantially over the last 2 years.
No, they increased substantially between 21 and 22 and have flatlined since then, if not retreated. Let's keep it real, everybody. During 21 and 22, salaries increased by 20 to 40% at the point of hire, meaning if there was somebody making $100,000, they probably then went to $130,000 a year in compensation. That was a moment in time when everyone in the industry was changing jobs. You had businesses who had attrition of 2/3 of their human capital during those 2 years. We predict about 2/3 to 3/4 of the whole industry changed jobs during those 2 years, and the ones that did likely maximized their earning potential. But now we've gone into what we thought was going to be a recession last year, which didn't happen. We also have some organizations, whether law firm or vendor, that did not increase their pricing as the cost of talent in the marketplace increased by 20 to 40%. And as a result, are struggling with a margins issue in their business and have to either then get new clients at new prices or recalibrate existing clients with new rates. And these are challenging business problems to solve, much less providing the kind of human capital or technology support that your people need in order to execute on their jobs in what is becoming a more sophisticated and evolving e-discovery landscape. I mean, the kinds of problems some of my customers are coming to me with for contractors to come and solve are some of the most complex things I've ever heard of. And I've been doing this for 25 years. I mean, it is getting much more complicated and sophisticated at a high level in the industry. But where the industry is struggling is getting the bottom up support necessary to alleviate the top of the market from having to pick up those chores or transition knowledge and teach and train those people how to do those tasks so they can focus on the more complex issues that their customers are now facing in this AI post-COVID digital transformation age that is now happening instead of prophesizing.
Let's jump to Peter's question. Are budgets starting to tighten up being the middle of the year going forward and more contract position? I think what he means is that resulting in more contract positions?
So no, this is the problem. Mike and I went into this. Let's go to the next slide. We'll skip this. Go two more. One more. All right, so here's the contract versus direct hire for ESI. And here's what's fascinating. About 90% of the jobs in e-discovery across the globe are generally at law firms or at service providers, consulting firms, and software companies, right? Very few inside corporate in-house, very few. Those jobs are pretty rare. But in the other verticals we work in, like data privacy and cybersecurity, most of the jobs, 80% of those jobs, are in-house corporate positions. Well, if you look at this chart in those verticals, it's a 180 of what we see here. For whatever reason, in e-discovery right now, the focus is extremely high on finding direct hire full-time positions. Lots of full-time direct hire positions out there, right? A lot of them are at law firms, though, which is different than how things have been in the past, where there's volumes of opportunity at vendors. There's almost equal opportunity between law firms and vendors for the first time in nearly 6 or 7 years. And as a result, those opportunities are full-time opportunities, and law firms are looking to bring people in-house as they have now brought technology, particularly Rel 1 and cloud tech, in-house and are now self-servicing to some degree that they can now bring talent in to accelerate and scale that potential in that model. But they're really struggling, these law firms, to fill these jobs because of what the last bullet in the slide said that we didn't go deep into, which is the in-office requirements. Because most of these jobs are requiring 2 to 3 days in an office, and the candidates that have the experience will not come in if they have now moved too far outside the city for a comfortable commute. So no, it hasn't happened. But here's what I predict will happen, and it's a great hypothesis. If the market keeps saying no, we're going to keep salaries.
We'll be the judge of that.
Well, we'll see. If we keep salaries low and we're holding it, and we don't fill these positions, essentially something will happen and a levee will break, right? And the demand will become so extreme, or additional customers will come on at such volume that they will be forced to have to augment, and they won't have as many options as they had in 2021 and 2022, because people aren't out there looking at the level of whimsy and frenzy that we were during the Great Resignation. And so candidates are going to be very choosy about making job moves right now. We see that. And eventually employers, if they're struggling and can't fill the headcount and get to a breaking point, will start increasing compensation, and we'll see salary in the marketplace start moving up again. Which, in 21 and 22, most of the jobs we were filling were between $150,000 and $225,000 a year. In 2023 and 2024, so far, most of the jobs we're filling are between, let's say, 90 and 175, right? The demand is moved slightly down in terms of where people want to spend money in terms of talent.
Yeah, I think a lot of those roles just got filled, and they're still filled. Like there's not openings there.
Or they didn't get filled.
Where there's,
and they're still not filled.
That could be too. People pull jobs off,
People pull jobs all the time.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it could go either way. I want to go back to the beginning here, because I can't believe that we're still, I mean, I know it's not that long, but I feel like, why are we still arguing about in-office requirements? Like, why is this still a thing? I thought we had kind of settled on hybrid is the way forward.
Yeah, but if you're someone that's working fully remote and employers aren't willing to pay a 20 to 30% premium just for you coming into an office, they're not going to move, man. I'm telling you. And even then, I still think a lot of them wouldn't move. People are just not going to give up that flexibility so easily, because they now know how difficult it would be to get again. The amount of jobs out there that are fully remote in 21 and 22 was nearly 80% of the marketplace. In 2023, it was 32% of the open headcount was fully remote. Only 32% of those jobs were fully remote. That was a huge drop off. Almost 62% of the jobs in 2022 were fully remote.
And do you think that's true even for a more prestigious firm or organization? In other words, let's say I'm working at, a non-AmLaw 200 firm, and I get an opportunity to, let's just call it, upgrade into a more prestigious firm, or a better title, something that's career moving, not great, maybe not great money, more money, but the requirement is that I come in the office. I mean, I don't know. I think I would consider that.
Well, you're of a different generation than half the working marketplace, Mike. And
Huh.
I hate to sound controversial, but maybe it'll be fun. I think that younger generations value less brand prestige and cachet and cash, and value more culture, a sense of belonging, comfort, and flexibility. I think those are the things driving a less experienced segment of the marketplace. And I think the things driving a more seasoned and experienced sense of the marketplace are the things that always drove me when I was the younger generation, which were ambition, vertical mobility, more money, a seat at the table, having a bigger impact on the business having a bigger impact on my life, developing a personal brand, assimilating it with a business's corporate brand. And some of those things I think are of value to younger generations, but it's not the primary thing that's driving them. And I think that there's a real disconnect between a lot of hiring managers who want less expensive talent, but struggle with motivating and attracting a younger group of talent who fits in that salary bracket, but isn't necessarily motivated or inspired by the same things that motivated the people they're being hired for.
I'd be interested in seeing some age demographics to sort of understand some of this in the context of the different sort of generational divides that are out there.
But I can tell you that there are very few people that are coming through our doors under the age of 30 that are qualified for these jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that opens
chicken
the
or egg,
whole.
Mike. It's chicken or egg, right? Like, if the job requires this, how could you have this if you're, 3 years out of school? You're not going to have that kind of experience. You're not qualified. But the compensation sometimes aligns more with somebody with that amount of experience than it does somebody a little bit more seasoned.
But you got to start somewhere, and it raises this whole question that we've talked about multiple times, you and I privately, and I think publicly too. We've talked about where's the next generation coming from, right? And I think it's a real question. Like I don't see it. I don't.
Well, I'm a little worried, Mike, that COVID may have caused us to lose a generation somewhere in our ecosystem. I mean, look, it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at evolutionary charts, and right, sometimes things skip generations or generations get skipped. And I'm not certain that I have an answer to that question other than you would think it would be the vendor ecosystem. But I think coming out of the highs and lows that came in such great short frequencies out of the pandemic, have made it really difficult to invest in the ramp time required to hire and train inexpensive, inexperienced professionals who have enough time to really get to where they need to be to make an impact on a business. Most businesses need a 2 to 3 month instantaneous impact. They don't have 2 years to wait for somebody that they've invested even $50,000 to $60,000 in to become billable and profitable and impacting the bottom line, because the market changes too quickly, right? Every 2 years, we're now at a different place for the last 6 or 7 years.
And I get it. I completely understand what you're saying. I just think that there's opportunities out there that people are overlooking. Our paralegal audiences, for instance. They've got a lot of the background already, the legal skills, right?
I mean, look, go get your ACEDS certs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was just telling my team, and I think I told you this, Mike, on our prep, for the first time in maybe, years, we've got customers saying, well, do you have a great litigation paralegal or a paralegal who's worked in relativity, but maybe not in discovery? And maybe we can train them over, because the pressure they're feeling in terms of fitting people into a cost structure that they've budgeted for is proving to make acquiring talent very challenging in large cities with a 3-day or more in-office requirement. It just is. Yeah.
Okay. All right. What else we got?
So let's take a look at speed of hire. I just want to, because it's new data that we haven't shown before. Let's go just back to one more. So you could see here how dramatically speed of hire has increased, right? Just over the last month and a half, 2 months. A lot of these executive positions that were open are still open. A lot of these senior project management jobs at law firms in particular are still open, and that's what's drawing this timeline higher. What's interesting is that ESI sales has actually accelerated a lot. We're seeing a lot more speed behind vendors and getting ESI sales hired. And I think that speaks to more of that question earlier about budgeting, and we're getting to the middle of the year. You're going to see vendors and consulting firms spending more on salespeople in the next couple of months, because they know that anybody they hire past now probably isn't impacting them until calendar year 2025 in terms of meaningful revenue. So they're trying to get a few great hires in before the end of the year so that it, invigorates Q4 and Q1 of next year. And you'll see contract augmentation, though not as voluminous, is still happening very rapidly. So people are going to market wanting contractors, they're getting them within essentially less than 2 weeks. when you go to the next slide, which is what I really wanted to show everybody, because this is new data, we did a trailing report of how long jobs are taking to fill, law firm versus vendor, going back 90 days. And it's fascinating, right? When we start taking the mean and averages of these that we see filled, vendors, you see, vendor comes, they're getting the job filled in 30 days. Why? Because most of those jobs are fully remote. And so the volume of candidates they have to explore and the interest of candidates available is both extreme. And that allows them to have more flexibility in terms of volume and price of the talent they want to acquire. Law firms, you see what's happening here is law firms back in March, April that have had spots open still have spots open because some of them are trailing now 80 plus days is the average. So they're really struggling to get people into an office. And that's a good representation of whether it's right or wrong or whether we settled it. The availability of e-discovery talent that's willing to either leave an already hybrid job for what might feel like a slight step up or a lateral move, or to leave a fully remote job for a job that requires a commute and a complete change of lifestyle is a diminishing pool of available talent. So if you're in that bracket, call me, because we got a lot of opportunity for you, a lot.
All right, we got a question. Where did it go? Oh, up here. Sorry. Most e-discovery professionals start somewhere else, to the point that I was making. Paralegal, IT, disenfranchised. Does true staffing track where people started, or anecdotally, what is the feeder league when experience is better than certification?
Yeah, we could go do an investigation and probably get you some statistics. We haven't been tracking that, and I don't have that data at my fingertips, but I appreciate giving me the window for anecdotal, because I can definitely tell you that there is a diminishing amount of people that are in the, let's call it 3 to 5 years of experience that came from being paralegals. If you look at people like Mike and Mike's tenure in the industry, lots of those people came from being paralegals. That hasn't so much been the case. What we're seeing now is, quite frankly, more JDs that are coming out of school going into e-discovery. We're also seeing more document review attorneys that have had, careers for 5 to 10 years doing that, being able to matriculate over now and flip by becoming technical. And we are starting to see more just general IT people get into the space on pure processing, hosting, production kind of opportunities, when they can get somebody to train them or they've invested in their own training. That's probably more where talent is coming from, but I don't think it's coming from those resources in enough volume over the last, call it 2020 to 2022, because during those times people wanted really experienced talent. Those people coming out of school in pandemic trying to figure out, we missed 3 years of training and acclimating a next generation. So there's going to be this gap, right? It's kind of like we spoke about last time, Mike, when we talked about there was a gap between that 80 and 100 in the marketplace. Like everybody wants to hire between 80 and 100,000 for PMs and analysts, but there's nobody out there actually making that right now. They're either slightly below or like slightly above, or like in that sweet spot and want to be much higher than 100, or like below it and like aren't quite ready to command 80 to 90. And that speaks to this like kind of missing generation, right? Because those people making 80 to 100 should have been the people that we hired in 21, 22, and 23 at $40 to $80,000 and have been grooming and training, and now they're making the next leap up. But those people either like skipped right up because it was pandemic and people were paying crazy prices, or we just didn't hire people at that level. I mean, I can tell you during those times, most of the hiring that at least coming through us were people with 6 to 10 plus years of experience in 21 and 22. And now it's shifted down. But as it shifted down, there's not as many people.
Right.
We're missing that generation.
All right, not to cut you off, but we got like 2 minutes, so let's look at salary numbers. Any movement there?
No movement there, but we can show you, these are the ones in highest demand. You can see here, these are law firms. It's pretty much across the board. If you go one more, we can take a look at the vendors, and you'll see here, this is right in the middle of the marketplace: PMs, analysts, coordinators, and sales professionals. Most of the sales professionals we've placed lately are either astronomically high, big rainmakers, or sort of at the bottom of this range in that 125 to 175 range. I do want to go very quickly, and one more slide, MT. Go to the resume clinic. I just want to make sure everybody hears about that. Here's some of our hottest jobs. We didn't get a lot of time for that. That's okay. You can contact Michael and Michelle. This is what I wanted to make sure everybody knows about. We're doing a resume clinic. We've never done anything quite like this in a webinar format before, but there's so many tips and secrets that are specific to crafting an e-discovery project manager resume. We're going to give away all those secrets on this workshop. I'm going to be joined by Jess Barr and Annette Habib, our senior vice presidents of recruitment and major account managers from major accounts here at True. They know what hiring managers are looking for. They're going to give you all their secrets. Join us for this. It'll save you a lot of time, effort, and energy, whether you're looking at a blank piece of paper or looking at an old resume.
Awesome. Well, there it is. Another month with ACEDS and True Staffing.
This is a good one.
Jared, thank you so much. Thanks to your whole team. Thanks to our team on the ACED side. Always a pleasure to see everyone. Yes, I believe the slide deck will be made available. And great to see everyone. Have a great week. We'll talk soon.